alright, if this looks weird, it's because I'm leaning it on something. Typically I'm holding either my phone or my camcorder or whatever I'm doing, but I tend to talk with my hands a lot, and sometimes I like doing that, but I can't do that when I'm holding something, so I'm leaning it on a stuffed animal. Actually, I'll show you. I'm leaning it on this. I got it at Otakon last year. I call it a capigapillar because it's a cat dressed like a pig, and the side things kind of remind me of a caterpillar, so it's called a capigapillar. You don't have to call it that, but that's what I call it. Alright, it is a little messed up, but whatever, I don't care. So this isn't a review for anything. Instead, I wanted to talk about a show, or series, I guess, that I'm very passionate about, you could say. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I don't know if any of you have watched it. If you haven't, shame on you. You should at least watch first episode. And the reason I want to talk about it is because actually recently I've gotten... I watched it first, and then I later got my boyfriend to watch it, and now he's getting 2 of his friends to watch it while I'm getting our mutual friend Rob to watch it. So we're collectively getting 3 people into it right now. I don't know if they're going to continue watching it, but they're at least giving it a like first couple episodes thing. So that's cool beans. I don't really care if they like it or not, as long as they try it. Now, so I want to talk about it, talk about maybe why you should give it a shot, at least all the positives for it, and I'll try and keep it as spoiler-free as possible. If there are any spoilers, it'll be things that are stated either in the first episode or in the first, like, 1 or 2 episodes, you know what I mean? I don't want any super, like, this is the endgame villain, or this person betrays you, if that happens in any JoJo's, then, you know, I don't want to spoil all that. So anyway, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is really interesting as a manga, and I guess as an anime series, if you want to say, because it's a generational manga anime series. And by that it means JoJo Part 1 is about Jonathan Joestar. And once his story is done, there's only, I think, like 50 chapters of the manga, which anyway, before I get into that, each part of JoJo, because you're going to hear me say part 1, part 2, part 3, even though the first season of the anime features 2 parts. That's why it's part 1 and part 2. The first part is known as Phantom Blood. Every part has a different JoJo. So for every different main character, there's a different part or section of the manga that's associated with them. Part 1 is Phantom Blood, which is about Dio Brando and Jonathan Joestar. Part 2 is about Jonathan's grandson, Joseph Joestar. That part's known as Battle Tendency. Seasons 2 and 3, respectively, is called Stardust Crusaders. That is about Joseph's grandson, Jotaro. And then the last anime season that is currently aired is Diamond is Unbreakable Part 4, which is about Joseph's son. Kind of weird. It's a weird situation. Joseph's son, Josuke. So it's a generational manga in that there will be an end to a character. Either the character has died, or maybe the character just finishes up their journey. Like, each one has an end game boss, of course. But once that's done, it's done. The story is over. JoJo characters end their saga. And while the they're called JoJo's because their first name usually is Joe something, like Jonathan, Joseph, Jotaro, Josuke, and their last name is something like Joestar, Kujo, or I don't know, possibly something like Hijikata or something that has the potential for being pronounced like. So that's why they're all known as JoJo's. So it's a generational manga where each part has its own story to tell. Parts 1 and 2 feature characters Jonathan and Joseph, and both characters use something called Hamon, which is the ripple technique, which will be explained in the first, well, actually, it's not even explained in the first episode. We don't even get that to like episode 3 or 4 or something like that. I want to say it's like using your like breathing techniques. It's a very weird concept. I really can't explain it off the top of my head because after part 2 they never use it again. Afterwards it becomes stands. Stands are essentially physical embodiments or manifestations of your mental strength. That's like layman's terms. If you want to read what the actual definition is, go do whatever. Oh, and to plug it, If you want a much more detailed, in-depth reason as to why you should at least start JoJo and watch part 1, I suggest Super Eye Patch Wolf's Why You Should Watch JoJo Part 1. Part 2 has some spoiler stuff in it, so you might want to be careful, but I think part 1's fine. And even if there is some spoiler stuff, he lets you know before it happens, so you'll be fine. So anyway, it's a generational manga, and I know I've said it like 1,000 times, but it's really interesting because it's just weird to see, you see something, you get closure. And I really like that aspect of it because there's a lot of manga series, God forbid shoujo romance series, I'm sorry, I can't stand them anymore. I used to love shoujo romance when I was like 10 because I was 10, but as I've gotten older, I care much less for it because they're usually really contrived so that there's a lot of random sadness and angst that you don't need. Like, every 3 chapters there's a, is he cheating on me? Is that another girl he might like? And I cannot stand it. The characters will almost never get together, and if they do, it's the last chapter. And not only that, but they just don't end. It'll be like 150 chapters of will they, won't they, and then sometimes you don't even get an answer to that. And these days I have far less patience for that, to be honest. That's why I like things like Akagami no Shirayuki Hime, where it's like, oh, they're together, good, now we can continue the story from there on. But a lot of shows don't do that, and there's a lot of just, anyway, shoujo romance novels, or manga, as you might know, go on forever. And sometimes if it's something like Bleach or Naruto, goes on forever and it doesn't seem to have any progress. I've heard things like One Piece, even though they have like 800 chapters, they still keep it fresh. And if it's something like that, that's perfect. But a lot of shows don't know how, or manga don't know how to really do that, and so it just kind of drags. And what I like about JoJo is that each part has a clear ending. Part 1 has like 50 to 80 chapters or something like that. It's done. It's not meant to be long. It's meant to set the stage. Then there's part 2, which still has significantly less chapters, significantly less. And then part 3 and part 4 have like 300 and something, or 200 and 300 or something like that chapters. But they finish. They end. There's a story and it's done. And I really like that. But what they also have are really interesting villains. I'm sure some of you might have seen memes or something of the, you thought it was blank, but it was I, Dio. That's from JoJo. The whole Dio thing like stemmed from JoJo. JoJo has a ton of memes. JoJo has a ton of just random screen capped things because there's so many lines in JoJo that are just so weird. But there's Dio, and then the Pillarmen, and then Kira. And Kira is from the latest season. He's from part 4 of the anime, not of the manga. The manga has 8 parts. There's Phantom Blood, Battle Tendency, Stardust Crusaders, Diamond is Unbreakable, something Italian, I can't remember what 5 is, something Italian, Stone Ocean, Steel Ball Run, and Jojo Lion, or Jojolian. I don't know how you pronounce it. I say Jojo Lion, they say Jojolian, whatever. Anyway, and they all are referencing something, but so they have really interesting villains. Dio is just like the scummiest scumbag on the face of the planet, which kind of makes him awesome. Like, he's not, if you've seen Berserk, which I haven't seen all of, but I know we all know, a lot of us know about Griffith. I believe it's how you pronounce, it's not Griffin, I think it's Griffith. We all know what he's done, and I'm not going to say it in case you don't know, although I feel like it's that Sephiroth Aerith thing, where it's from Final Fantasy VII, where it's been so long, everybody sort of knows, but he's not like scummy in that way, but he's a scumbag in that he's there so you hate him, because he's just such a menacing asshole guy. But Kira from part 4, he's kind of like, you don't know him yet, and this isn't really spoiling anything, but he's just like a normal dude. He's just a super normal dude who also happens to turn out to be a serial killer. And that's not a spoiler, because we all know from the first episode there's a dude killing people. It's just that they don't get to him until a little later in the series. But I'm not spoiling anything. You know right from the episode he's introduced, they tell you straight up, so that's not a spoiler. It's not like a plot reveal or anything. But they're really interesting and really, like, not likable, but they're so... Dio is menacing in the ultimate power-hungry lord way, and he very much always gets what he wants, and he's charming, and he can make people, like, do his will, and it's so weird. But Kira is just, he's just a normal guy, but he's also just so crazy, and that kind of makes him really scary with the power he has. Oh, also, in case you didn't know, everybody is either named after or has a stand named after some sort of musical reference. In part 7, there's a guy named has a stand named Hey Ya. There's stands in part 4 named Heaven's Door. There's the dog's named Police. There's there's Killer Queen because he's named Queen. He's supposed to be based off Queen, and then he has 2 abilities called Bites the Dust and Sheer Heart Attack. Okay, there's Bad Company. There's in part 3. Well, there's not a lot of references to that in part 3 specifically because in part 3 they're named things like Egyptian's Red or Steel Chariot or what are they called? Star Platinum, stuff like that. Hermit Purple. They're named after tarot card plus color, pretty much. Except for the second season, then there's like gods and stuff. Not going into that. But they all have like names like that. Even in and there's also Red Hot Chili Peppers in part 4. They all have, stuff like that. There's REO Speedwagon in the first one. In the first one, a lot of the characters. And in part 2, there's AC/DC and shit like that. So they're all like, it's really random, like musical references, which is pretty fun. But another thing that makes it really amazing is that there's, before I go into what's amazing, what might kind of hang you up on this is the art style. It's really kind of like muscular, macho, butch. If you can just get past that and get past how the fact that the first part is about Jonathan Joestar and he's kind of super boring, if you can just get past that part, it's amazing. All the rest of the 100 whatever many episodes are out are amazing. It's just the first like 8, the first like Jonathan part, it's not that great because Jonathan's boring to me, but whatever. But the art style is really the only thing usually hanging people up. Regardless, what's amazing, 2 things that are amazing about JoJo are the stands that come in later and the emotional moments in it. The stands are amazing because, and even the Hamon in the first 2 parts, it's that, I've heard people say this, and I 100% agree, one of the best things that can happen in a shonen anime, or an action anime and action manga, like JoJo, is when a character has a certain power that has a limitation, like it can do X thing and that's what it does, and knowing that, and then he's going against someone else who also has a limitation of their power. Both people have powers that might be powerful, but they have limits to them, and then figuring out how they're gonna win based off these certain specific limitations in a certain specific situation. So like, I'm trying to Josuke in part 4 can heal people. The thing is though, it's not that necessarily his power is healing, his power is that of like restoration. So he can punch a hole in the wall and then heal the wall. He can restore it back to what it used to be. However, Josuke can only restore things back to the way he remembers them. So there's a part in episode 1 where he breaks a guy's nose and then heals it, but he heals it back to look like a pig's nose because that's how he saw the guy, as a pig or something like that. So Josuke Josuke cannot heal himself either. So if he gets damaged, that's, the end of it. And so there's a part in one of the early episodes where there's a stand called Aqua Necklace that can freely travel and manipulate water, kind of. And if he gets inside of you, he can kill you. And so what he tries to do is he tries to go inside of Josuke to kill him. He has a grudge against him. Josuke, because he has the power of restoration, had at one point ripped up and swallowed, I think it was like a rubber glove or a balloon or something like that. Then, when the water guy went to go down his throat to kill him, to get inside of him to kill him, Josuke restored, like pulled out sort of, and restored the water balloon thing back to it's into completion, trapping the aqua water guy inside the balloon. Like it's so weird. The thing about JoJo and their stands is that a lot of the time, even if the battle seems like it's gonna go in a certain way, it never goes that way. It always takes you by surprise. Maybe not in the very beginning with Jonathan, just because it's kind of a predictable part that's meant to be more setup than anything else. But definitely in the later parts of the series, there's just certain parts where you sit there and you go, how am I supposed to figure out that, you know, that would possibly happen? They did the exact opposite of the thing I thought they would ever do. It's just like so awesome. But like I was saying before, there are very emotional moments. There is a part, in one of the parts, there's a character who dies. I knew, because Tumblr was making a big deal of it, I knew when he died, how he died, who died, what episode he died, everything like that. I literally knew all of it. And yet, still, in the episode that character died, I actually sobbed. The music, the drama that was happening, how it happened, the animation of it all, the I get maybe the voice actor too, I literally was sobbing. It was amazing. I've never cried that hard at a death I knew what was coming. Like, a death I knew was coming. That is honestly the most amazing thing about the whole... I was like... whoa. But so, I know I really haven't stated that much, and I've kind of just been rambling about why I think JoJo's good. But JoJo is extremely interesting. It has each part has its own amazing cast of characters. They never repeat themselves. You might look at a character and go, oh, he seems like the funny one or whatever. But, you know, there'll never be another Abdul. There'll never be another Koichi. They'll have other characters that might fill similar roles, but they're like what they call the Jo-Bro, who's like the right-hand man of the JoJo. So part 1, it's William Zappelli. Part 2, it's Caesar Zappelli. And part 3, I guess you might say it's Kakyoin. I don't think the other 3 characters fit that role, so I'll say Kakyoin. In part 4, there's Okuyasu, arguably Koichi. Part 5, I think it's Bucciolati. I don't know in part 6. Part 7, I know it's Hiro or Gyro. I don't know about part 7, I should say, it's Hiro Gyro. I don't know about part 8. I haven't read past part 4. I'm thinking about starting reading part 5, because I read a little bit of it and stopped, but I'm thinking about maybe I should start it again, because I'm starting to get in that JoJo mood. I'm starting to get in a manga mood in general, so I'm trying to read more manga. But overall, JoJo is a show that's literally silly, fun action. And it has a plot, and it has a story, and it has dramatic moments, but JoJo is literally a show that is silly, fun action that's also, like, super bara guys in the beginning, and then just stylish, like, just look at pictures of JoJo. And just looking at pictures of JoJo is so fun. There's all these random references to like Bites the Dust, Your Heart Attack, Red Hot Chili Peppers. There's all of these things, and they're all so super fun. And like for me, my favorite part is still part 2. It's the second half of the first season with Joseph Joestar, because Joseph is an absolute blast to watch. He's a mischievous trickster, kind of asshole who does what he wants and speaks his mind, and he's always using like sleight of hand and tricking, and he's all about deceiving the opponent and making them think that they know what's going on when he actually holds all the cards. Like, he's a top pro level like gambler, like legitimately. I love him. I'm actually cosplaying. I'm going to Otakon this year again. I went last year. I'm going this year. Maybe I might vlog. That's kind of the reason why I bought a camcorder, was to possibly vlog it, or at least part of it. Probably not a whole lot, just because I can't guarantee I'll even remember, but I'm hoping to do at least a little bit, maybe showcase some of the costumes, or just stuff that's there or whatever. It's going to be in Washington this year, so I'm hoping, you know, at least to look around. I've never been there before, at least the part I'm going to, so, you know, whatever. But I'm going to Otakon this year, and one of the costumes I'm doing is, not Jonathan, it's Joseph Joestar from part 2. It's the young Joseph, and my boyfriend's going as part 3 older Joseph, who kind of looks like Indiana Jones a little bit. If you've seen it, it kind of looks like Indiana Jones. He's going as older Joseph, and we're going as like a pair, kind of, because we're the same character. But I love that guy so much. He's to me, he was the most fun Joseph to watch. He was an absolute blast to watch. If you don't believe me, just look up random stuff about him on YouTube. He does such stupid, weird stuff. There's like Nazis in it for like a random reason in part 2. It's just like crazy. Turns into a cyborg Nazis. It's so weird, but it's so awesome. Like, legitimately, you should totally just watch at least the first couple episodes of JoJo. Like I said, if you have a hard time getting past it, just Wikipedia or something the first part and try watching part 2, because you don't, that's another thing I forgot to mention. You don't have to watch them in order. You don't have to watch part 1 to watch part 4. I personally did because I feel like you should watch it for the setup, but it's not necessarily something you absolutely have to do. The art style is a little weird. If you can get past it, that's great. If you don't like the art style at all, jump to part 4. Part 4 flips the whole art style, because part 4 is when Araki, the mangaka for JoJo, kind of just started changing his style, and that's the style he usually sticks to now, is the slimmer, not as super masculine, beefed up guys. But back then, that's what they did, because that what was in. If you've seen Fist of the North Star, you know that beefy dudes were in back then. But it's just it was just such a blast to watch it, and it's a show that's just fun to watch because it's so dumb. And if you just really need, honestly, if you just find yourself sitting there and you're like, I just want to watch something that I can kind of turn my brain off for, totally JoJo, in my opinion. It's so much fun. But that's my thoughts as to why JoJo is amazing and why you should totally watch at least try and watch it. If you don't like it, that's totally fine. But it's one of those shows I feel like everybody should give a shot, because I feel like there is a reason why it's so popular, even if at the end of the day you don't like it. Maybe you can at least understand why other people do, and that's really all there is to it. So let me know what you thought of JoJo, or you think of JoJo as of right now. Or if you're gonna go and watch it, you can come back and tell me what you thought of it after you watched it in the comments below, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!